So first of all, I wanted to look at EGFR lung cancer, epidermal growth factor receptor. Look at these. If you look at lung cancer rates in the whole of England, so this mostly includes smoking-related lung cancers, you will see from a lot of these maps, it seems to be a bit more prevalent in the north of England than it is in the south, particularly the southwest. However, with this work from Professor Swanton, Mariam Jamal Hanjani and others, you would think with EGFR it would be more prevalent in the southeast, particularly London. Bear in mind I can't really isolate London on its own, but you would think it would be more prevalent in the southeast than it is in the north and the southwest. We've got various maps there which show that. So what's it going to be when we look at the maps? And it is indeed more prevalent in the southeast, broad southeast, 40.1 cases per million of drugs prescribed, of TKIs prescribed, compared to 32.6. So for EGFR, the most common drug in most of the years is osimertinib. So all of the people that I know, EGFR patients, I don't know that many, but the ones I do know are on osimertinib, and afatinib used to be really the drug of choice years ago, but osimertinib has taken over from it now. Dacomitinib and gefitinib, I don't really know much about those, but they were approved by NICE some years ago, so I've included those as well. Erlotinib was also approved by NICE, but I've not included that because as far as I can tell, it's also used to treat pancreatic cancer, so I thought it was probably best to leave that one out. Mobocertinib is a recent one. There's a specialist, there's a type of a variant of EGFR called exon 20 insertion, which all of these other drugs are not effective against it. So those patients, I do actually know one patient on that who they go straight onto chemotherapy or radiotherapy because these other drugs don't work. And then there's this mobocertinib is used second line after that treatment because there was some data at the time that suggested that that was efficacious. So I think unfortunately that drug is being withdrawn. I think it was March 2024. So unfortunately, I don't think that population will grow much. This is actually quite a bit. I think exon 20 is quite rare, but I didn't think it was quite as rare as these numbers suggest. So I think that there's probably a lot of exon 20s that are not on here. From memory, I think exon 20 is about 10% of EGFR, so you'd probably think there'd be a couple of hundred there. But I think a lot of those have probably never had this drug, and they've been straight to chemotherapy and such. But anyway, that population won't grow anymore. So looking at this, we do have a very consistent pattern across the years, starting in 2019 right through to 2023, which always shows that the broad southeast is TKIs are much more prevalent in the broad southeast compared to the north. So we got comfortably statistically significant in 19, same again for 2020, and then it goes really low for 2021. That p-value goes really low, so the bias, and even lower for 2022 and 2023. So that is very, statistically highly significant for those last 3 years on the face of it. I've looking at the actual p-values here. So that's very, very low for 2022. That's quite a few zeros in there. So I presume I've explained in the method section how I've calculated these, and hopefully that is correct. It seems to be giving the sort of p-values that I would expect. I've also compared the two low pollution areas and adjusted for population sizes as well, with the p-values. So the southwest and northeastern Yorkshire up there, they're virtually the same in 2023, so hence the p-value is almost 1. So 35.6 versus 35.4, and a very similar 31.3 versus 30.8. So again, a very high p-value. So they're basically, there's no significant difference between those two low pollution areas there. The detailed picture shows a few spikes. I see Cambridgeshire comes up quite a lot on a lot of these different lung cancer maps. Now I presume it's Cambridgeshire University's Hospitals Trust, NHS Foundation Trust, seems to be the reason for that in a lot of these different lung cancer TKRs. I suspect what's happening is that it's a bit like London, where the University Hospitals Cambridge is treating a lot of people in surrounding regions, so I suspect that's why those particular spikes are happening, although I can't really confirm it, but that's what I suspect. There seems to be something odd occurring in the last 2 years with this spike in Suffolk. Now I'm not really sure what's causing it, and whether it's genuine or not. There seemed to be 2021 it was just kind of ordinary levels. 2022 it goes up quite a lot. So in that year there was 11 patients on it seems to be related to osimertinib. So there were 11 patients on osimertinib in 2021 in that region, and then this went up to 41 in that region in 2022. So it almost quadrupled in 1 year, which seems odd. And then it went up even further in 2023 with 50 patients. I don't know whether that's genuine. I looked at the source data. There's not any obvious errors in there. The numbers seem to gradually go up over the months. It is what it is. Maybe it's an error, maybe it isn't. It doesn't really change the broad picture. Comparing them 40-50 patients doesn't really change the balance that much, in the grand scheme of things, especially when we've got 2,000. We start off with 1,000, an average of 1,000 patients in 2019, and then over the years it rises to 2,000. Now a lot of that, I think, is not so much that there's lots more new cases, but people are just surviving longer now, so the population is building up. Afatinib wasn't, we can see here the median progression-free survival, if I've got the data correct, was about just under a year in those days, so people unfortunately didn't last as long. Whereas with osimertinib it's over 3 years, which is a lot better. So hence you can see the population of osimertinib growing as people live longer and the new patients go onto it, and you've got the people on afatinib declining. So I guess a lot of these, the 183 patients in 2024 are mostly long-term. Sometimes people survive, although it says it's only 11 months progression-free survival. Some people will survive 5 years, 6 years, 7 years on there, perhaps even for whatever reason. Looking at these patterns individually, So I'll screen out these other drugs here. So afatinib, as I say, used to be the drug of choice initially. We still have this very distinctive pattern, broad southeast compared to the north is very highly statistically significant for just afatinib on its own. For 2019, 2020 again, 2021, the numbers are starting to drop off, so we're only down to 252 that year, and it's still more prevalent there, but not statistically significant anymore. Not statistically significant, and it even slight flips in that last year when we're down to 183 patients. So it's slightly more prevalent in that last year. Looking now at the detailed picture for the main drug, osimertinib. Screening out afatinib. So there's not many patients in on it, in only 260 back in 2019. So the osimertinib wasn't approved until October 2020. So 2019 was pre-approval, and there were probably just a limited number of hospital trusts that were where the detailed picture shows that it was prescribed all over England, but I suspect that there were, in that pre-approval era, there were some hospitals that were prescribing it and others that just simply weren't. And then this year in 2020 we did get approval, and we get this distinctive pattern in the broad southeast where it doesn't quite reach statistical significance, but it's very close, and then very strongly statistically significant in 2021 when those numbers start growing dramatically, and it continues again in 2022 and indeed 2023. There's never any difference, really much of a difference, between the southwest and the northeastern Yorkshire. Then finally I'll just look at a brief look at these dacamitinib and then gefitinib, but we'll look at dacamitinib first. So here we got a very different pattern for dacamitinib. So it's quite prevalent in the Midlands, and the north there's not so many. There's only really only a few dozen patients on it, so I'm not sure that really means much. I don't know whether, in what circumstances, dacamitinib would have been prescribed instead of afatinib or osimertinib. I don't even know whether it's being prescribed for something else, but the pattern, for what it's worth, is a bit different for that particular drug. Maybe it's used for some other type of cancer, I don't know. And then finally looking at gefitinib here and screening out dacamitinib. Both of the dacamitinib and gefitinib seem to have quite short progression, median progression-free survival numbers of just under and just over a year. So again, we have this, it's for whatever reason that particular drug is more prevalent in the north, and you see it quite a lot in the Midlands. Again, similar question with dacamitinib. I don't know whether it's even used really for lung cancer. It's certainly not consistent with the other patterns. So overall, looking at everything overall, it does seem to support the TRACER-X hypothesis that, or certainly at least there seems to be more EGFR lung cancer patients in the areas of highest PM2.5 pollution. Whether that is because of that, or whether it's coincidental, I don't know. Other people will need to make that sort of judgment, but that's the pattern for what it is from what I've produced.